What's up, YouTube? It's Rich from Have Moto Will Travel, and I'm out on a beautiful March day here, and I'm going to attempt two challenges today on this episode of Motorcycle Confessions. Stay tuned. So the first challenge I'm going to attempt today is the 10-minute motovlog without edits. The Blue Bike and Doyle did this a while ago, and I wanted to see if I could do it. I never have really set out with the intention of doing it, but I came close a few times without even trying, so I figure if I try, I can do it. Anyway, I'm going to attempt this by doing a motovlog of the 7-gear challenge, which Michaeli 7 specifically challenged me to do, and it's a series of questions, and I'm going to attempt to do this, and I figure with 7 questions, 10 minutes unedited should be no problem. Although you're going to get all the outtakes, any flub ups I make, you're going to hear. So let's go. The first question was, what motivated you to buy your first motorcycle? Well, I'm going to tell you, folks, I got my first motorcycle ride when I was 12 years old. It was on the back of a CB500 that was owned by my father's cousin, Sandy. He was a pharmacist, of all things, in New York City. We went to visit him, and he offered to give me a ride on the back, and I'm surprised my mother let me go. But I can tell you this. I got on that thing, and at the end, I should say, I'm sorry, yeah, there's one of those flubs, but in the first corner, it was all over for me. When we went around that first corner, I felt G-forces kind of on a motorcycle first time, and you're out there in the wind, because I wasn't dressed for this. I mean, I don't even know, I can't even remember if I had a helmet on. Okay, but I was on the back of that motorcycle. He leaned that thing over in the first curve, and it was like, oh yeah, baby, this is for me, I'm telling you. So anyway, after that ride, it was, of course, it was another 4 years before, 3.5, 4 years before I got my car license. And once I got my car license, I knew I had to have a motorcycle because I was in fear of getting into an accident. Because as I was driving, and any time a motorcycle went by, I was turning my head to see that motorcycle in detail, to see what kind of motorcycle it was, where it was going, who was riding it, and it was just for the grace of God, by the grace of God, that I didn't plow into the back of a car that was in front of me stopping while I was not paying attention and looking at motorcycles. So really what happened was my dad bought a couple of mopeds, and he also bought a Honda 100 that he kind of had fantasies about riding. And although he loved riding that moped down, he bought one for my mom and one for him, and he used to ride down on Sundays and get the newspaper and ride that moped all over the place. But he never really kind of took to the little Honda 100 that he had purchased. So that was really kind of became my first motorcycle. And I rode that without a license. Even got pulled over for riding when I was riding without a license. I didn't get cited, but kind of irresponsible. And after I got pulled over, I finally went out and got a license, and I got out of college. I got a job, and my second job, with a nice paycheck, I went out and purchased, I think I started there on June 1st, and on July 4th, so the weekend before July 4th, I went and picked up my first bike. It was a GS 850G Suzuki, brand spanking new 1979, and I rode that flippin' thing everywhere. I mean, it was freedom. I started going on motorcycle trips, and but anyway, to get to the bottom line, that's what motivated me to buy my first motorcycle. My ride at when I was 12, my first paycheck, obviously, and the fact that if I hadn't bought a motorcycle, I was going to end up plowing into the back of somebody. I know I was. Now, what's the second question here? Let me think here. Let me think. Well, I got to shorten these answers up a little. So the next question is, what type of riding do you prefer? Twisty or straight? Single or group? Back road or slab? Well, twisty, obviously. I love twisty roads, and but I have to say this: I don't mind straight roads. Riding across Oklahoma, where the road is straight and pretty much flat, was really kind of a revelation to me because I thought that it was going to be boring as hell, but I really enjoyed it, even though it was flat. It gives you plenty of time to think. You can look around and appreciate the flatness. You can see the windmills in the distance. It's not as bad as I thought it was. As far as single or group, well, it depends on the size of the group. Honestly, riding alone doesn't bother me, but my preference is to ride with another person, or two, or three, and it really kind of depends on how comfortable I am riding with them. So I don't mind a group of four as long as everybody kind of rides the same way and rides at the same skill level, or the people who are slower don't mind if you take off and just wait for them at the next intersection. But typically big groups I'm really not into. I've led big group rides, and I mean it was okay, but it's kind of just too much to manage, and I don't, there's so many different levels of riders that I always feel responsible for what's going on behind me, so I prefer not to do that. Now, back road or slab. Here's the deal. I like back roads, obviously. Most motorcyclists do. But here's the thing. I have nothing against the slab. I've ridden some really beautiful sections of interstate in this country. And, when I do, and the scenery is beautiful, because there are a lot of interstates in this country that are pretty windy. They're twisty roads. The only difference is the road is twice as wide, and you don't have traffic coming in the other direction. So when I'm on a road like that, I can remember there were sections of I-26 down through North Carolina that were just beautiful, and really those curves on the slab, man, they can be pretty inviting because you can see right through them. You know what's coming. You can turn up the speed. So I have no problem with the slab like most people do. Next question was, favorite type of motorcycle trip? Day, weekend, or longer? Well, I prefer to be out as long as I possibly can. That's just me. My first experience was that in 2018. It was a trip that I made after coming back from surgery and not riding for about 9 years, and it was 10,000 miles long with one other person. I had the greatest time ever. Last year, I flew out to Texas, purchased a Goldwing, rode out to Phoenix, Arizona, and then up to Utah for a week, and then I rode the bike all the way home from Phoenix to New Hampshire. I don't mind riding alone. Now, I have to tell you, my preference is to ride with somebody else on a long trip. Day trips, I got to tell you something. The only real reason I ever do a day trip is because I'll be riding with somebody or doing a motovlog. But because I'll be riding with somebody, I enjoy the companionship. But other than that, I don't do a lot of day trips. I don't get on my bike just to take a ride around town. I prefer to go somewhere. I told you, I'm a destination road rider. So that's just kind of the way I like to do it. Same thing with weekend trips. I love going away on a weekend trip as long as I'm with somebody. Yeah, I really don't want to spend the weekend alone. Now, that's weird that I say that, but yet going on a longer trip, riding alone doesn't bother me. Again, I would still prefer to ride with one other person. My favorite ride or destination, which is the next question, I would have to say Montana. Montana was just beautiful. We rode from Missoula. Well, we rode quite a bit of Montana, but from Missoula up to Kalispell was just beautiful. We rode past Flathead Lake. I'll put a picture up for you to see, and it was just, I actually did a Moto Noise video of that. Just the nicest ride. Oh my God, it was beautiful. And I'd have to say that was one of that's probably my favorite rider destination so far, is Montana. Although Idaho and Utah, oh my goodness. So I guess I could say the West. I loved riding out west. The biggest lesson that I've learned from motorcycling, wow. I'd have to say that the biggest thing that I've learned from motorcycling is that there are some things in life that are so important to you that you don't even realize it until you lose it, and then you'll do almost anything to get it back. The loves of your life will motivate you that much that you go to the ends of the earth to find a solution to why it is you're not doing what you love to do. And that's the way it was for me. I mean, if it hadn't been for motorcycling, I don't know if I would have looked for it as long and as hard as I did to find an answer for my problem. So, next question was words of wisdom for new motorcyclists. This one's easy, really, because I'm going to give new motorcyclists, or I should say I'm going to give aspiring motorcyclists what I consider to be the best advice. Become a good driver before you ever attempt to become a motorcyclist. Yeah. Make sure that you've got all of the little tricks of driving down. Looking under cars as you're going along to see if there are little footsteps or big feet underneath the. You can look down and see beneath the car and know if somebody's going to come out in front of you, and catching the other driver. All the little tricks of being a good driver. Develop those first. Be comfortable. Make driving second nature, for safe driving, I should say, second nature. Before you attempt the other kind, because otherwise you're going to get hurt. I mean, that's just a fact of life. The best motorcyclists get hurt because of bad drivers. Be a good driver before you try to become even a bad motorcyclist. Okay, that's my advice. And then my next big ride destination is New Mexico. I'm supposed to go out there in June. The Intruder Forum is having a gathering out there. There are a lot of people that I've known online for years that I'd love to meet, and I actually got reacquainted with a guy from the Intruder Forum on my way back from Phoenix last year. He was kind enough to give me a little shortcut that was a lot prettier than the route that I was going to take, and I met him in I think Santa Fe, I think, or Albuquerque. I can't remember. And anyway, we went out for barbecue, and I'd just like to see him again. He's actually in an upcoming video I have of that trip. But anyway, that's it. That's pretty much, I think, the 7 questions. I got them all, I believe. And now we're going to go have a little dinner. Sherman made a nice big pot of hot soup. And anyway, that's it. I'm pretty sure I went over the 10-minute limit. And I'm sure I got all the 7 questions. I know that for sure. So anyway, that's it for this episode of Motorcycle Confessions from New Hampshire in March. Over and out.